So I'm Shazquatch, obviously. Everyone hopefully knows who I am. This is Dujek. He is already a CSM member from CSM 19, and he is hoping to become CSM 20 this year, which is really sweet. Um, I hope people can hear Dujek. If you can't, let me know, and then I will turn him up as loud as I can. Um, Dujek, for the people at home, can you just introduce
Well,
yourself and tell a bit about yourself?
I'm feeling a little bit stupid now. I gotta like, move my mic
Oh my god,
way
that's
over here.
so much better. Thank the Lord.
Yeah, it's like on a big arm, and it was like you're saying like I can't hear you that well. I'm looking at the mic over at the side, and like maybe it should be right here.
Yeah, that's you sound so much better. Oh my goodness. Cool. Dujek, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm Dujek Oneye. I have been playing Eve for nearly 12 years at this point. I saw everyone was talking about the Battle of BTAC-R back right before I started. Like it was all over Reddit. That's what got me into it. I'd known about Eve for his entire existence, basically. I lived in Iceland when Eve first came out, so they were marketing it there and like it was around. My computer couldn't run Eve when it came out, or it could
Oh
run
no.
Eve, but our internet wasn't good enough. It was like one of the two. I was an RTS person at the time. I played a lot of StarCraft Brood War and stuff like that. So I had to go through the Blizzard games first. But a friend of mine that I met playing other games, he was big into Eve, so I was at his place watching him fly a Drake back when Drakes were overpowered, and he was doing DED sites and getting money for his tournament team. And he did actually win the Alliance tournament that year, and then he got banned for collusion. So
Oh no.
I picked it. I ended up starting Eve a bit later, and I stuck with it since. He gave me all my initial good and bad habits. This was before skill injectors and so on. So he was explaining like you have your main, and then you have like a market trader in Jira, and you've got off-grid links, and you've got to have different capitals, and getting into a capital takes like a year worth
My
of
god.
training. And I did the only thing that made sense to me as somebody who always like goes in like feet first, like fully into it. And I played my main account for like 1 month, and then I was like, I need 7 accounts. So
I
I
have
like,
a couple guys in my wormhole that are like that. Like they've played the game for like 2 months and then suddenly they have like twice as many accounts as I currently have.
yeah, I made my 20th this month for a project of playing Eve Iron Man. Like I build
Oh,
everything
nice.
myself. I don't use the market at all. I mine my own ships, which means that they're free, right?
Yeah,
And
oh yeah, that's how that works, right?
I'm really finding out what I'm getting myself into, because I was like, I would like to have an MTU, but in order to have an MTU, I need to like set up a PI setup and get stuff for the MTU, and then rip that PI setup down and make a different PI setup for
Oh
another
my
part of the
goodness.
thing. And yeah, it's gonna be interesting for sure.
Do you have to like rip down somebody else's PI infrastructure and then set up your own? Or
I don't think that the Pocos break my self-imposed rules for like not trading with people. Like again, I'm giving money to people, but I'm not like getting something tangible in return. So
yeah, you're just a little
I
bit mooching off
wasn't
of them.
considering like building a Poco gantry and setting like bashing a Poco in ice, like because then I'd need a structure, and that would take a while.
Oh my
I just
goodness,
want an
just dude
MTU,
solo.
like.
Yeah, yeah, just one little thing can plop down and call your own. Yeah.
Especially since like, so I could get a pretty reasonable ship. Like you can get faction everything. Like I can basically not have Tech 2 stuff, at least for a while. It'll take a while for me to get there, but um, faction stuff, like I can
Yeah.
have a lot of that. Getting tags is hell though. God, it reinforces that tags are an outdated concept in the game, and I would rather we found a way to move on from that for LP stores.
So just get rid of LP stores altogether, or find something different
No,
besides.
no. I mean, like LP stores in and of themselves are fine, and they're being updated, and we have some people who care about like making the LP store a nice place to shop. So that part is good, but like I know I'm not the only person who hates tags on the CSM. I know Young Puke will bring up his loathing of tags reasonably often.
What would be what has been suggested that would be something that could replace tags in the LP stores?
I don't know if we have a very concrete suggestion. Like in a sense, people will come in with this idea of like how the CSM works, and now that I've been on the CSM for a year, like some of my assumptions were fine and some of them were a little bit not quite correct. Um, I initially assumed that there was going to be way less like advocating for pet projects than there are. Like everyone who gets onto the CSM holds well, has the option to hold a talk about one of their main like things that they want done with the game or their areas of space. Like we had Mick Fightmaster talked about wormholes, obviously. Drake talked about Pochvan. Young Puke talked about Losec, and like in a whole issues of like all the things that go on in the space and need to be changed. But back to tags, the way that this would work isn't that I go to CCP and I say, I hate tags, get rid of them, and here's what you are going to do. It's more that I would make a write up of why I don't like tags, why they might be a problem, canvas some of the other CSM members, get them to also add into this as to why we don't like it. And then our job is kind of to convince somebody there to read our proposal and like be convinced by the fact that we don't like them and it is a problem, and then it will kind of go into the system of like all the things that they might need to do at some point, and then they might revisit it when it's time and they've got time to actually deal with it, and then the game developers go and do their thing, like their actual job developing the game.
Yeah,
And then once they've looked at that, they will show us what they thought of, and then we'll like give feedback on that. And like this is a multi-year process on the long scale of it, or it could be much shorter if it's a very small problem or something that just needs to be fixed now soon. Like this is an issue that we hadn't foreseen when we changed stuff in the last patch. Now it's a problem, we need to fix it now. Like the time scales vary wildly, but like on the CSM, we will get stuff that was proposed like years ago or from the last CSM. And I'm sure that in terms of legacy of the people who have been on the CSM, stuff that I've done this year will not be dealt with this year. It will be for the next term or the term after that. So there's a mixed bag of changes coming in all the time.
what are some things from last year? Like, let's say you don't make CSM this year for whatever reason. What's one thing from last year that you would hope we be pushed on to for example, your legacy further down the road for future CSM members? Like, what's one thing that you felt very strong about last year?
I think that perhaps the stuff that I worked on the most last year was both new player experience and like a focus on new player recruiting, and also how that ties into freelance projects, where I would like this to be like you're an aspiring corp, you want to recruit more people, you make freelance projects, you target them towards new players do them, we get more contribution methods, more like quality of life aspects to it, like ACLs and so on. And then players will do freelance projects, get in touch with groups putting up those projects that are out there doing stuff. They get recruited by those groups, and then they keep playing Eve because they have somebody to play with now. They find the right group for them.
And with the freelance jobs that came out this year, I think it was, how do you feel those are going so far?
It's been a bit of a slow rollout. I am kind of amazed by the evolution of it. Like in terms of like we have corp projects and corp projects have like a focused scope, and that gives certain advantages, like them being like you are opted into them by being in the corp, so they automatically happen. Freelance projects, by the very nature, are open to everyone, so you can't have that way of everyone is opted into them all the time because that would just kill the servers, I suspect. So um, they got rolled out where the contribution methods were fewer because they needed to be like re-added and reformulated for freelance projects. So now that we have been getting more of them, we're getting like we got like some item deliveries, and like ACLs have been promised to us, and that'll come later when it shows up. That will be great. The very first freelance project we put up in Brave was like kill pandemic horde, and
Saw
we
that one,
have a
yeah.
standing yeah, we have a standing kill pandemic horde in our space freelance projects, and like same for other groups, but um they just killed themselves, and that like made pandemic horde eligible to get our payment for killing their own like corvettes.
Yeah.
Not exactly how we intended it, but
Yeah,
live and learn.
that's like one thing that I've found myself with the freelance projects. I'm 4.5 years into like my Eve career. I probably will never touch the freelance projects unless it's something just I want to try as like a, oh, this is a thing I haven't touched in a long time. Let's see if there's something I can do with this. Um, I've been finding that there's been like a little bit of abuse, just like the example you gave. Is there something coming down the line where it might fix that, where people might try to cheese like freelance projects, or is this like just an ongoing issue that we're gonna have to deal with for the next couple years?
Well, we know we're getting ACLs, right?
Yeah.
That has been said. So that will like first of all, like in the case of Brave, we would just limit the ACLs so that like only Brave pilots are eligible for the payout. That's that problem
Yeah.
fixed, right? But you told me you do MPSI, and since I've been bugging and talking to the devs a lot about freelance projects, like I've given them a whole bunch of like the kind of contribution methods and effects that I would like to have, and like so for instance, you do MPSI, so one of the things that I suggested was having the contribution method say you join a fleet and you dock up in the right station. And if you do those two things, then like you as the fleet leader would activate the project. And then everyone who fulfills those criteria of being in the right place at the right time in the station in the fleet, they get given a contract for a ship, like, or they get a handout ship, like automatically they're just delivered a fit ship from you say you want to take out a rifter fleet. You
Yeah.
fit up 50 rifters, you put them in the project hangar, and then the 51st people who dock up in the station that you're going out of in your fleet, they just get a rifter, it moves over to their hangar, right? Like that would be a cool future freelance project use case, right? In a sense, like I feel like the name freelance project implies that it's like, what can you do for me?
Yeah.
Like you want people to go out and do something for you, but it should be rather easy to flip it on its head. Or for instance, have the parameters where like if you die in a certain ship with a certain fit, then you get SRP'd for that ship.
That would help
Like,
me out a lot personally, because how I run my MPSIs is I will always do hull SRPs. So if you want to bring your officer
yeah,
mods, you're more than welcome to. So it'd be really easy if
okay.
it's like if you're in my fleet, then it just comes out of like my corp wallet or whatever. Here's your SRP for that ship that you were just flying. So that would be really,
Yeah.
really handy.
I like the one thing that I was worried about from an SRP standpoint for projects is I would like it to not necessarily just be hull, but also I would like it to be partial matches if we could get that. I don't know if we can, to be
Yeah,
entirely honest. It's like I've just given them a long list of things that I think would be cool if we could do, things that are like my wish list. Like for instance, if you want people to have rifters, you can't paste like exactly the fit that you want to SRP because it's got ammo, and like if it's a drone ship, it's got drones. But if you die, you've shot some of your ammo, your drones are in space, it no longer matches entirely. But you would, for instance, have the option to say like, if it's a rifter and it's got exactly the one prop mod that we've said, or if it's got an afterburner and it has rigs fit, then you get SRP. Like kind of regardless of what weapons you have on it, because then it accounts for people like not having T2 skills,
right.
for instance, or if somebody wants to put an STML's multi-spectrum hardener on it, that's fine because it doesn't check that you have exactly a Tech 2 shield hardener, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's awesome. Do you have you is there any data that's supporting that freelance jobs is making like new bros like want to play Eve more or stick around a little bit more?
There, like the data I'm sure exists. I have not seen it. Like as CSM members, we're allowed to request to see data like through other people because we're Eve players, right?
Yeah.
We would definitely abuse it. Not like the CSM would definitely abuse it, but one of the stories that I heard at FanFest, because the data team will have like a data presentation and you can go and you can ask them stuff, and like popular questions are like how many of this AT ship exist? Like there are exact, or last I checked, and this is at FanFest, somebody asked how many Rabisus exist in the game, and the answer that year was 23. I don't think more Rabisus have died since. Not that they'd necessarily be on C-Kill, but I'm pretty sure that exactly 23 Rabisus exist now. But somebody had asked about like specific stats regarding P4 PI, and they were basically just trying to use that information to corner the market on a
Oh
specific
my
type of
god.
PI, and that's when CCP Larrikin realized that maybe we shouldn't. Well, he probably realized that people would want to abuse it before that. I wouldn't say it was a eureka moment, but certainly they're a little bit careful about what stats they give to players, and certainly not for no reason.
Cool. Is there anything else that you think would help keep new players around? Because like for me, the biggest thing that I see with my limited time in Eve, like I haven't been playing the game since 2009 or whatever. But what are some of the ongoing things you feel might be with retaining new players in Eve? Like Eve is a very slow game, like we were talking a little bit off
Yeah.
stream. How would you feel that would bring Eve to a more modern, like Gen Z group of players?
So I have a laundry list of things I want to do. I'll go through some of them quickly and some of them with a little bit more explanation. I think that the Magic 14 skills should be given to players in an easier and quicker way. Because if you are training guns, like you're training small guns 5 for 5 days and you get the T2 guns, that's kind of a power upgrade. You get to fit out all your ships with like better guns. It feels good. Getting into like a frigate 5 or a cruiser 5 or something is also like a nice milestone. You worked for it a while, you've trained for a couple of weeks, you get it, it's good. Having your ship and then having to train Power Grid 5 in order to like fit the right modules instead of the meta modules or something, when you have to stop to do that, it feels like you're not progressing nearly as much, especially since the Magic 14 are obviously 14 skills. So it's a lot of skill points to train that are like every ship needs them. And I would like them to be maybe like given out for the air program as well, or like you can do like some new storyline missions to get some skill points towards your Magic 14, or just like an accelerated way of putting in effort to get those skills would be good for the game.
Do you know off the
I
top of your
also
head? Oh,
Say what?
sorry. Do you know off the top of your head how long it takes to fully train Magic 14?
Not off the top of my head, but you're looking at 1 to 5 levels for all of the skills, and most of them are pretty low training multipliers. So like I would say that like at minimum 70 days,
My
but
gosh.
probably somewhere in the like 100 days range.
Oh, it's
If like
yeah.
not assuming like remaps and cerebral accelerators and implants and stuff like new players care about this a lot more. Like as an experienced player, I don't feel like it bothers me too much, but when I'm trying to get new people into Eve and teaching my friends and so on, that is kind of it's a feel bad. But moving on, I would like there to be more ISK available for the lowest level of activities. I'm talking like level 1, level 2 missions, mining, in like ventures and stuff like that, because the big power spike for going from a frigate to a cruiser or from a mining frigate to a barge or stuff like that, like it's a big upgrade, but it also comes with um, the risk of if you lose that ship, you're going to have to go back to the frigate and grind for like quite some time, right? Like you uh, use a Merlin and you do level 1 missions and they pay out like 40,000 ISK each. And you have to do a lot of them to afford a fit Caracal. And then if you take your Caracal into, say, a level 3 mission and you die, or you accidentally go into low sec and you die, or you enter a wormhole because you learned about them in the tutorial and you warp to a site and you just get blown up immediately, the rebuilding your net worth from losing your first expensive ship, which is expensive only to new players,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's pretty bad. There are ways of making good money in high sec as a new player by doing home front sites or something like that, but it's also it requires some know-how. Most new players don't have that, and they end up doing missions. So a mission overhaul and payment would be good, but also a mission overhaul in general. I wouldn't want Eve to be known as like a missioning MMO in the way that other MMOs are thought of as questing MMOs, but the actual like the missioning experience is a little bit lackluster, like has aged pretty badly. And I think that early high sec missions that result in standing loss are also maybe a bit outdated as a concept. And the two other things that I think are big for the new player retention is having small things that you can do for shorter play sessions before people are totally hooked on playing 8 hours of Eve every day. I had a friend, a now friend of mine, then unknown to me entirely, post a post on Reddit asking for an Eve mentor. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds cool. I'll play with this total stranger day one newbie in Eve, and we're doing a bunch of stuff. We're doing like frigates and abyssals, and we're doing some mining, and we're ninja huffing gas and so on. But it's difficult for me to find appropriate things to do out of a specific location. Say we're like we started out in Amar, and certain things are harder to do around Amar, or like it takes a while to find a wormhole to go and do some gas huffing, or it just takes a while to start up any activity in Eve. And only really abyssals are the thing that you can do immediately, other than say doing some plexus and faction warfare or some like low level ganks or roams or filaments. There should be more in the category of stuff to do in the first half hour after logging on without spending 15 minutes finding the content. And this friend um, has a job and is also in university for additional training for said job. And between the two of those and a family life and like sleeping every day, like it's hard. We don't have 3 hour gaming sessions. We have like an hour and a half if we're lucky and half an hour if we're not. So that is that is a focus for me. It was last year as well.
Yeah, like for me, before we started the interview, I did my PI and I restarted a bunch of my manufacturing stuff, and that took me 30 minutes. And like that, like if I didn't have this going on tonight, I'd be going to bed. Like
Yeah.
it's hard to just log into Eve and do something fun quick. It'd be really nice just to, yeah, like you said, just find something that you get that dopamine rush, and then you're like, okay, I can like log off and go be with my wife or whatever.
Yeah. And the very last thing, and this has been talked about by CCP Rotati in an interview in like at FanFest this year, is the idea of player created content to a greater degree, maybe using some of the freelance project framework. Player created missions means player created tutorials. And I think that there are hundreds of things in this game that are not explained by the tutorial that it would be great if players could like do a tutorial, do a write up, you go through the steps. It has arrows pointing to the UI elements you need, and it explains things in a way that only like obsessive nerds are willing to put new players through, like how to use dscan, how to bookmark a wormhole, just a bunch of things that you should know how to do in the game. But if the actual official tutorial was comprehensive, I think people might also feel like they should do it as a new player, and I think people would quit if they had to do like 250 tutorial missions explaining the finer points of everything in this game. Like, that's too much. Let people bundle a couple of them together, call it an arc, give some rewards to players. Have, for instance, go into lowsec, scout a plex, descan the plex, go into the plex, capture the plex, being like a couple of separate missions. You bundle that, players can go through your like mini tutorial for how to capture Plex. They can thumbs up, thumbs down it, or like rate it, or write a comment or something. And then a new player who wants to go to faction warfare down the line can go into the tutorial section to find the best faction warfare tutorial because it's got the most comments and reviews and whatnot, and then do that and learn a bit about faction warfare, for instance.
I really like the idea of like a rating system, because again, like I'm friends with Amazon Prime, and some of the freelance jobs that they put out, like
Yeah.
the first week they had 3 orcas go through Amazon, to go to the other side of Amazon to go ice mining. If people just knew that, hey, this is basically a scam, then that could just get pushed down to the bottom, and then people would be doing like the real freelance jobs. So no, I really
Yeah.
like that system.
I do hang out a decent amount in Amazon as well. Actually, I freight for a bunch of my money and my spare time. I do logistics because I can do it while I'm doing other stuff during a day, like committing to a PvP fleet. Like I do play a lot of Eve, but my actual fleet time and PvP time and AT practices and stuff that are like 2 and 3 hour chunks of my day, not as easy to fit in the middle of the day. So I freight through Amazon and shit talking local because
As you
why not?
should, as you should. They're all fun guys. They like the shit talk as well.
Yeah,
Um,
I got to fly with a bunch of them in the campaign against the Absolute Order this summer. So, like, not dodging their ganks for once, but actually like ganking other people together. It was good.
that's good. Yeah, I remember. Well, yeah, going to the YTech M and then shooting structures and stuff. That was very fun over the summer. You mentioned in your forum posts about revitalizing wormholes. As somebody myself who lives in wormholes quite often, what sort of ideas do you have in place to help revitalize wormholes?
In my wormhole capacity, like I've lived in wormholes since like the third month of playing Eve. I am in the wormhole UN, and I make as many of those. I join as many of those meetings as I can. I talk a lot to McFightmaster, who's a wonderful CSM candidate. You should also vote for him if you're voting for anyone. He's great. And a lot of my thoughts on wormholes are more stuff that we've picked up from Wormhole UN meetings, stuff that people like want from there. Suggestions include looking at ninja gas mining, because trying to catch AFK frigates going 4,000 meters per second around a gas cloud that are hard to hit that's a pain. One of the things that we got through in this CSM term was the look at like having more wormhole connections and having case-based connections from C4s to a greater degree, and like all of those numbers of like the probability of various wormholes appearing, that has been tweaked. We had the wormhole drifter event that we also consulted on somewhat. Obviously, a lot of this stuff is presented to us as this is how it's going to be. Tell us if we've made horrible mistakes. So, like, we're not necessarily to blame or to credit for a lot of the good and or bad changes that come into the game, but we at least give it a once over as often as we can to make sure that like nothing bad comes out of it. Other wormhole stuff. I personally think that more people should live in wormholes and there should be a little bit less focus on like pure farm holes, especially I think that like it's kind of sad in a sense how C6 space is. And this is not me like making a big deal of like a wormhole blue donut or something, but when I first lived in wormholes, C6 space, living in it was something to aspire to because you could roll into each other faster and get more fights. Now that's kind of controlled space, and you're not really seeing like people's main holdings and home holding in C6 space. But something to fight over that isn't necessarily like reffing each other's structures or shit talking in local until somebody wants to honor brawl you, like some objective to fight over in wormhole space, which in the wormhole UN we've called like the granary, like something. Like we don't have the most fleshed out ideas of what exactly it should be. One of the changes that has been voted over and proposed in the Wormhole UN is also whether we should have more statics, having like a second static for C5 space, for instance. That's been a discussion. There are a lot of things in areas of space that are more focused, like Pochven. I'm in the Pochven Roundtable. I'm in the Faction Warfare and LowSec focus groups made by Young Puke as well. So like these areas are more democratized in terms of like what the people who live there want for the game, and the CSM members come and represent that area of space and talk about it. When it comes to high-sec, it's a little bit harder to get a consensus from high-sec players because they're such a mixed bag. A lot of them are new, a lot of them are industrialists, so they like function in different ways, like more smaller esoteric play styles and not like a monolith of people. And in nullsec, we also have just a bunch of people who are at war with each other, but they're very large entities, and it's maybe harder to get a consensus on certain issues. So I'm not saying that people come from nullsec and advocate for like a buff to themselves and their space and their way of life, so much as nullsec candidates are often more specialized into other areas of the game as well, whether it be industry or third-party development or FCing or capital warfare, or in my case, the new player experience, which is like my special area of interest.
Yeah, a lot of people that say like, "Oh, this is another nullsec candidates." They just want to buff nullsec, and that's sort of like a bad stigma for these CSM candidates.
I think it's fair that there's some stigma to nullsec candidates, because if there wasn't, we might actually like end up in a position where there were too many of them. Like there probably are too many of them already, but I don't think that that makes them bad candidates. Like the more variety we can get from the game, the better. But on the other hand, like a lot of people are loath to vote for nullsec candidates other than like if they're in nullsec themselves, and that might contribute to keeping the number down a little bit, and that might be a good thing. I'm not saying don't vote for me, but I'm saying more that I understand why people are somewhat hesitant to do so a lot of the time.
You say here something about weapon tiericide. I don't know what that is. Can you explain to me what weapon
Oh,
tiericide is?
this is my favorite topic. So last year on the CSM, because I spent so much time talking about new player experience, I didn't really have a big personal project to like push. Like a lot of players will come in and they will have like the things that they like, they'll talk to players in the game and they'll then bring forward their concerns to CCP. And then there will be bugs to report, and then they will be talked about, and then that will be brought to CCP, and like all these small issues. And then we have a weekly meeting where the agenda is usually set by CCP, and we talk about like the newest thing that CCP is doing. But there's a lot of time in the rest of the year to work on things that ought to be fixed in the game and changed in the game that aren't easily categorized. So people will have like a small pet project of like an industry revamp in terms of like taxes, or the Oz will talk about like trading aspects and like quality of life in regards to that. And for this year, I have weapon tiericide, which is the idea that we need to go in and we need to rebalance, especially the gun weapon systems, to make a little bit more sense in the game. So missiles are split. You have long range weapons and you have short range, high damage systems, and they have different bonuses. So you can have a ship that has a bonus to only light missiles, but not rockets, or only rockets and not light missiles. And that makes the tuning of ships way more granular. And if you have a ship that is bonus to heavy missiles and it sucks, you can just make that bonus to heavy missiles a little bit better without worrying that it suddenly ends up doing a ridiculous amount of DPS with hams and becomes a completely busted ship. But what we've seen with turret boats is that the Munin that was too good with artillery and never fitted autocannons had to be nerfed because there wasn't the granularity available to it, or the rail systems that have been kind of ubiquitous in later years of like high damage, super long range shield ships, the Eagle, the Ferox Navy, the Roke. All of these ships have been too good without being able to be viable blaster ships, because if they're good with one weapon system, they have to be bad with the other, because that's just how the bonuses work in the game. If you give something a 50% damage increase to hybrid weapons, it will be too good with rails, even if it's balanced with blasters. So what needs to happen for weapon tiericide to be made is that we need to split the bonuses there, and we need to go in and rebalance the weapon systems, and then add in the ability for ships in the game to have a bonus to only one of them. And we'd see stuff like the Ferox Navy, which is already bonused as if it was supposed to be flown with blasters. It is very rarely flown with blasters. And the Eagle, which people have wanted to be a blaster boat, like a short range, fast, high damage ship, which shoots like a medium range with blasters, like ends up shooting 150 kilometers if it fits with rails, or it did when it was very good. That's a problem, right?
Yeah.
So that's one aspect of weapon tiericide, like going in and cleaning up that part so that you can bonus them differently. Secondly, there are a lot of weapon systems in guns that is just too many. Like there are 35 250 millimeter guns in the game. 35. It's just like nobody needs that. And 35 millimeter artillery, 35 millimeter rail guns. Like one of them is a small weapon system, one of them is a medium, but dual 250 millimeter is a large weapon system. So like it's confusing to some players looking at it. Like what weapon do you use? Is scout artillery better than whatever the other like or Gauss rifles or like it says nothing about the weapons and like the differences between them are incredibly minute. At least in missile launchers, you have ample has more ammo, you have compact has reduced fitting, etc. It just there don't need to be that many different weapons, and this isn't uh, like it, this change would require a decent amount of dev time to happen, so it would need to be slotted into an expansion some time in the future, and that's what I want to push for. Not necessarily like getting the balancing done now, but getting a time slot for this to happen at some point and not just like kick down the road forever. Because this last major update, we did actually go in and balance a fair few ships, many of which I proposed as they were less popular, like the Maelstrom and the Confessor and the Harbinger Navy, and some of these ships are just not used very much. But if we look at them, a lot of these ships together have a systematic problem with their weapon system. Like the Harbinger Navy, the Zealot, um, the Laser Legion, they're all kind of mediocre because like pulse lasers do a lot of damage and have a pretty good range with Scorch, but these ships are normally fit with beam lasers. So if you just buff the weapon systems, blanket buffs the weapon systems, they might be too good, and the Omen Navy would definitely be too good. It's already a very popular ship. But if you have to balance an entire class of ships by balancing each ship individually, that's a lot more work and more opportunity to get one of them wrong and accidentally make it too good, for instance.
So would the goal then for weapon tier side is just to sort of shrink down the available choices of guns that you could use, or is it ship balancing, or what would be like the overall one thing you would want to change right now in order to make this a little bit easier to grasp for maybe newer players?
It's expanding the dev tool set by giving them more levers to pull to balance ships in the future. This is like future proofing the ship balancing process primarily, and secondarily, there are a lot of variants of meta guns that are very similar and essentially only the best meta gun is used. The one that has like the slightly higher rate of fire bonus, the slightly higher damage bonus, and instead take, say, 5 meta variants of a single gun and turn it into 3 very distinct meta variants. One that is easy on fitting, one that has an extended ammo capacity, and one that, say, has less of a drawback or like uses less cap or whatever that would be for the particular system.
That's yeah. For me, like looking at all the different guns, it's not like a huge deal just because like whenever I go pick out like ships, I just go through Zekiel because I'm terrible at building at making ships. But for somebody who may not have that magic 14, it would definitely make things a little bit easier just to like oh here's like the 3 or 4 different guns that are available to me, and it would definitely make the new player experience for building or making your own fits a lot easier and a little bit more accessible than just going to Ezekiel and just grabbing what's available there.
Yeah, and there are some like most of the weapon systems have one downsized gun that is also very rarely used. Like the 200 millimeter rail guns are only used if you have like extremely tight fitting on some cruisers. Not a lot of other reasons to use it. Same with 650 millimeter artillery compared to 720 millimeter, or um, like slightly smaller battleship guns, like dual 250 millimeter instead of 425 millimeter. Like, yes, they have niche fitting reasons for existing. Like some some ships definitely use slightly smaller guns for a good reason. Like they often have more tracking as well.
Yeah.
But the weapon tier aside would have somebody like a dev go in and make some actual choices as to like what guns we should have and what guns are maybe superfluous. Like clean up a little bit. I'm not saying like have the number that exists and call it a day. Like I wouldn't want to sacrifice granularity for this ideally. Just better naming conventions, a little bit easier to grok what is going on with the different guns.
Um, like one thing I always think about, like, okay, if we're going to get rid of some like, let's just say they do get rid of like half the guns for whatever reason, they just like snap their fingers and then all these guns are just gone. What would be like for some people, they just have these giant stockpiles of just these like really crappy like 32 millimeter auto cannons or whatever. What would you think would happen to their stockpiles? Would they get like a like just like, oh, it just gets immediately reprocessed, or would they just stick
They will
around?
change the item IDs to another thing. Like this has happened before. Like we did it for missile launchers already, and almost like half of all other things that exist. It would be like if you had this one, like the the scout version of a gun,
Yeah.
it would just turn into an ample one. Or you
Oh yeah.
have this other one, it would turn in like it would just turn into the
Yeah. Just
nearest analogous version. Say hypothetically they removed 200 millimeter uh, rails, they would just be 250 millimeter rails the next thing.
gotcha. Yeah.
The no, like it might result in loss of value for some, certainly. Like there are a lot of like currently all of the guns that have like many different types of meta versions, like what the best meta version is worth all the money and all the other meta versions are basically worthless.
Yeah. No point even having sticking around then. No, I
Yeah.
like that. One thing that me and Yun Puke 2 talked about last week, um, we had a big fight in Abzon recently over a Dawn's light structure that they tried to put down, and it was going really well. And then suddenly we had Nullsec dropping however many capital subcaps ships on top of us while we were trying to go and deal with this low sec problem.
Yeah.
One thing that we're sort of getting pissed off at is just like nullsec just being everywhere all at once all the time, and force projection starting to is it's always been like a big concern for again like for the small guys, like the small guys being pushed around by the big guys, and
Yeah.
that's even for wormhole space. It sort of feels like I'm always I'm always at the whims of like the wormhole blue donut. What would you like to see change for force projection?
So at the very start of last like this term's CSM summit, we knew that force projection was going to be a big deal, and we were, based on what we've heard from previous CSMs, we were like worried that the discussion would devolve if we like went into it and tried to like have the discussion in front of CCP. So we actually spent a bunch of time, all of us, hammering down everything that we could agree on and everything that we absolutely could not agree on, and like make a pointed list to bring to CCP of like these things we want in order to deal with force projection as like these are our first suggestions. And we did make that list, and the list included some of the things that we have now, like being unable to warp means being unable to take an ANSI. We had making the ANSI smaller and making you spawn less far from the ANSI when you go through. And we had What other things do we get at the same time? Oh yeah, the ANSI changing to Metanux style reinforcement. That kind of stuff we had on the list. We had a couple of other items on the list, some of which I won't talk about. One of the ones that I personally wanted was for capitals to not be able to take ansiplexes in order to save on fatigue. And we didn't get everything that we put on the list. So, like, to some degree, there was an idea that we will get what we get now, and then we will wait and see what effect that has. I know some people on the CSM feel like what we have now is good enough. I don't think it's good enough. One of the ones that is highlighted as like, oh, this does a lot, and like this basically solves projection from somebody is that bubbling in ANSI means that like one saber could hold up an entire fleet wanting to go through for a very long time if they play their cards right. But that isn't really changing the systematic ease of getting around with projection at the moment. So I'm not saying I have like one or two items that I definitely think would solve projection. I think that's maybe a too simplistic way of looking at it. I
Yeah.
think that a lot of things, including like pre-staging ships and jump clones, or just living very close to low sec, like Frat lives close to low sec,
Yeah.
where they are dealing with stuff. So like hypothetically, even if ANSIs were given fatigue, I'm not sure, and I'm not as confident as Young Puke is that it would solve the projection issue. It would just slightly complicate it. So I think that the other part of nerfing projection is not just making it harder to project, like just straight up like add fatigue or make it so that if you take an answer you can't take another for an hour instead of fatigue or
Yeah.
like
No.
something like that. I think you also need to have reasons to not go and mess with smaller groups and want to go and mess with bigger groups. I think that a lot of the reason why Frat might want to go and drop caps in low sec is because they're getting to go drop caps in low sec, whereas they're not really. I mean, I say this now, they've just announced that they're going to go and try to fight initiative in Cloud Ring, but had we been talking about this a week ago, I would have said that maybe Frat are bored and they need more stuff to do that is equally or more fun than dropping caps on factional warfare players. Like if there's nothing to do, people will go and they will deploy close to smaller groups and dunk on them. We see that happening a decent amount in the history of Eve.
Yeah.
And like that in and of itself is a problem. And I'm not suggesting that Frat is worse about this, but like their time zone disparity with other groups of similar sizes also means that they have to pick their fights differently as well. But I think that any nullsec group who have the ability to deploy somewhere and get good fights is incentivized to do so for the fun, so there has to be more fun elsewhere as well. Like Init was also deployed to that area, and I gather they pulled back because they weren't getting the fights because of a time zone disparity there as well.
Yeah. Like there should be advantages for living out in nullsec in my opinion. Like you should be able to take your ans luxes, you should be able to use the infrastructure that's set up, and I feel like putting more timers on people in Eve is not the right thing to do. Because the game already has so many timers and so much waiting around already. I think that would definitely disincent not disincent make people not want to go move up to nullsec if again they can't use the infrastructure for hours and hours and hours. But yeah, I don't know, like the whole like bubbling a single ANSI's like ruining people's gameplay. I don't think that's definitely true.
No, I don't think. I think that it has ruined individuals' gameplay when they like thought they could get through an ANSI and then they
Yeah.
got bubbled and they got stuck. But like, no, I don't feel that we're there yet. I think that we need more changes. But I think the discussion is like, how granular can you make it? Like, would it like I'm completely just a hypothetical thought experiment because sometimes I like throwing out weird ideas and then people quote them at me for months afterwards, despite them not being meant as like I think we should do this. But like maybe if you end up closer to low sec, you get fatigue, and if you end up less close to low sec,
Oh,
like if you're going towards low sec, you would be slowed down, and if you're just like in the null sec and like moving around your own space, like it's not as bad. Like people have talked about all sorts of like they should work less, like ANSIs should just be worse if they're further from your sov capital, or they should be worse if they're further from your where your death clone is, or like there are a lot of good ideas out there in terms of this would be a cool way to do it, but I don't think that they are being like they can't really be realistically tested against each other to see which one is the best, and a lot of them are very intricate and therefore difficult to implement in a reasonable amount of time. I think that there should be something that is easy to grasp and easy to implement. And I also think that like once we get there, once like we've found the good solution to projection, I do think a lot of players are going to wake up the next morning and the game won't be perfect, and we will need to find even more ways to improve the game. Because a lot of people talk about projection as like it might very well be the single most important issue, but I don't think it is the be all end all of balance in this game. So like we need to continuously ask ourselves, why is this happening? Are there other things in addition to projection that we can also change to help with this? Um, I think that drifter wormholes are maybe a little bit too powerful of a tool to get around as well. Like we use them a lot when we want to go and attack people who are far away, and they're very, very reliable. I think that maybe making it so that they have to be scanned down instead of like automatically
just warp
found
too.
could be
Yeah.
a thing.
Yeah.
I
Or
know
even
this is like there are a lot of whalers and stuff who use them a lot, but I expect that they would be able to cope with that and just have some scanning ults in
yeah, like
addition.
that's not too hard to change even for like a giant null site block, like just to scan down a drifter hole and just be like that. That would add like 5-10 minutes to your gameplay, I guess. Like just to scan down one
Yeah.
single hole, that wouldn't be the end of the world.
Well,
Is
I mean, in the terms of how you use drift rolls to get around, it means that you scan like a half a dozen to a dozen near where you're going from in your space, and half a dozen to a dozen near where you want to end up in their space. So like it might actually turn into like a significant amount of work for one person to do. But I think that if like a couple of people want to log on a couple of alts to work on this together, like they can be rewarded for their effort. But
you
yeah, pro projection nerf, absolutely. I think that we need to get something done there.
how like I know you're in Brave and you're obviously like a fantastic FC with all your AT being a captain and such. From the general nullsec side of things, how does the average nullsec player feel about force projection for like right now, like for people who are like being their F1 monkeys or what have you? How do they feel in general just about how force projection is from a nullsec perspective?
I would say that we have like okay, so we moved twice in the last year and a bit. Like we moved staging twice. And one of the things when you move staging is that you go over to the other place. Like we had like the structures set up for us, but we didn't have the sov taken. And when you take the sov, you have a 35 window 35-day window of not having ansiplexes. And what I would say is, like, from my own experience, those 35 days just make everything a little bit of a chore. Not, I don't actually spend much time in our space. Like, I don't have to go, I don't go in Iraq, and I don't mine all that much in our space. But having all these jumps for like positioning of sinos for like moving a fleet and bridging later, or like we're going to a fight that we have planned to like go and support an ally, or we're going to like attack somebody who lives nearby. Those fights went from being like 10 jumps and then we fight. So we form 20 minutes ahead of the fight and we get shipped up in our stuff and we bridge a couple of jumps and then we burn the rest of the way. When it's 35 jumps instead of 10, you form an hour in advance. And that's an hour of not fighting. It's an hour of not playing the game, essentially. And I know some people would say, like, yes, that is the point. But I think that the flip side of projection and the balance is that you shouldn't necessarily have to change staging every time you want to like go in a different direction on the map. And it does kind of come down to like, oh yeah, the empires are a little bit bigger, and if groups were smaller, that would also make more sense. But you're not exactly only attacking people's border systems either. So like even if you have ANSIs on your side, in null to null warfare, you still have a decent way to go. And I think like getting the fight sooner is what we want to have, and being able to pivot very quickly and take an unplanned fight far away, like on the drop of a dime, that is a bit of a problem. Like, oh, we see other people are having fun halfway across the map. We can be there in half an hour if we rage ping. Like, that isn't necessarily how it should be. One of the things that strikes me as interesting is when Equinox first came out, ansiplexes were very steep on all associated costs. They cost a lot of reagents, they cost a lot of power and workforce, and when we were looking at it, we were at the time looking at being able to have maybe 3 ansiplexes in our space. I couldn't count the number of ansiplexes we have in our and allied space currently. There's like literally 100 of them. I think maybe if there was some flexibility in where they went, and you also couldn't have all that many of them. Like you have some local ansiplexes right around your capital, and that's for like your miners and your ratters and your industrial people to get around your space. But like the big ansiplexes that are used to jump over like 10 jumps at a time to radiate out from your capital and get to other people to fight them, maybe you just can't have as many of them, and you have to plan a little bit in advance. It's like, okay, we have a war against Horde, we point our ansiplexes against Horde, we can always get towards Horde a little bit quicker, but then we're sacrificing our ability to like have all the other ansiplexes pointing in all the other directions simultaneously, so we can go dunk on Sedition whenever we want to, or like hypothetically. I don't think we've fought Sedition all that much recently. In fact, I do have dreads positioned in order to fight an Abysson, and I do have like a medium cache of dreads out in Sasade in order to like fight Frat in that area. So it's not like we haven't planned on having the ability to project in certain areas, but at least like then we have to put down the money and we have to put in the logistics, and we have to like procure the dreads and move them to a spot where we think they're going to be needed, rather than being able to like burn our dreads there quickly and go
Yeah.
jump on people.
Like for me with projection, I feel like groups should be rewarded for putting in the work to have things set up beforehand. Like your dreads that are pointed at Abzon, like your team has put up time and ISK and like the logistical chain in order to be able to make that work. That should be rewarded. But like you said, oh, there's this thing that happens that's happening on the other side of New Eden. Well, let's rage pain, and then we can be there in 20 minutes. That's sort of, yeah, I guess that sort of like projection is kind of something that also makes me feel a little icky.
Yeah, I like, in a sense it would be good to have some sort of mechanics in a way that like spool up in going a direction where like if you have to put in the work to plan ahead, you deserve to be there a little bit more. Like people, like what we want is for there to be small regional conflicts that don't get overshadowed by big neighbors, but we also want to have like everyone wants a big scrap to happen in the system, and everyone like puts their stuff there a week in advance, and then they go and fight each other or threaten to fight each other, as it often is.
Speaking of like escalations, you say here the capital escalation path and making big and or expensive fights happen. Is that something that you're looking more to happen in the game, or is that something that is a bit of a problem where everyone's sort of striving to have these big capital fights, or is this like a good thing for New Eden?
So I like big capital, like I wouldn't say I love tie-dye, but I do like the battles that are so big that they can be named. I realize that we've had a lot of trillion-esque dread throwdowns in the last year, and that's great. And I feel like a trillion-esque deserves to be called a big battle. But I like, when was the last time we had titans firing at each other? Like realistically, I think that there should be a reason to own the biggest toys and get the biggest toys. I don't think that they should be the be all end all of escalation. Like there is a sweet spot where if you have enough dreads, you fight the titans anyway, but titans should still feel powerful. We did make titans and super carriers quite a bit tankier in the last year, and I've heard people talk about how they now feel like they're too powerful and they're dampening people's will to fight with dreads in case the other side has titans. It's hard to quantify not fighting because you're afraid of something, because that kind of only exists in like in the hearts of the FCs who are then afraid of losing their stuff. But what we were hoping to do, and the work needs to continue to be done with this, is dreads and carriers and faxes should be reasonably priced so that going and losing one in a fun weekend brawl seems like worth it. And then before, I bring dreads, you bring dreads, I drop more dreads, you drop more dreads, I drop more dreads, you drop more dreads, and neither of us wants to drop supers or titans because you just immediately lose the ISK war, because there's no way a titan from 1 year ago is going to kill its value in dreads or tank its value in dreads, or half and half, right? If you dropped titans, they just turn all their dreads on the titans, the titan evaporates,
Yeah.
you get sad, and then you feel like it was a bad idea. That might have, the pendulum might have swung a bit far in the other direction. I don't think we really know, but like they're very tanky now, so it
Yeah,
seems like they should be worth doing if you get the chance to do so.
I don't, I can't remember the last time I've seen a, well, maybe if I look at Ezekiel right now, I might be able to find like a Titan death. But
Oh yeah,
usually,
I mean they die all the time from people who buy them in asset safety systems and just like YOLO jump them out. But I mean, what we wanted was that there would be multiple escalation paths where like there are different strategies for different situations. You try putting super carriers in close or super carriers in far, or titans instead of super carriers, and like have long range dreads and short range dreads, and your opponent drops supers, so you drop titans on their supers, or like whatever it is. I'm not advocating for any specific strategy here, more that there would be other strategies than I drop all my dreads and you drop all your dreads, and whoever has the most dreads is the dread king and they win. That that's like that's kind of boring. It's like a
Yeah.
one trick pony. Ideally, there are multiple ways to skin that cat and have an interesting strategic battle in addition to whoever has the most stuff.
Yeah, like I recently started getting into more dread brawls just because of my second favorite system in the game. But it does feel like it just turns into just whoever has n+1 Zern just gets to walk home with all their toys. So yeah, it would be really nice to have some sort of way to escalate in a meaningful way strategically rather than just like, hey, we're going to undock more dreads.
Yeah,
Um,
and like they're like these ships have like slightly different jump ranges, and like there I feel like there are ways of making the topography interesting of space as well. I feel like the war against Horde has largely not been fought with capitals, just because regional gates are getting in the way of people being able to like meaningfully drop from what they consider to be a safe position without being counter dropped by people who have like better ranges available to them. Not that that will like change from an escalation path point of view, but I think there are many considerations when it comes to like why people are or aren't dropping dreads in nullsec, not limited to like regional gates being bubbled and there being jammers on the other side. I have no love for Sino jammers. I don't think that discussion has been had yet as to like why we have relatively fewer big dread brawls in nullsec now than lowsec are having. Like I'm jealous of lowsec for that. There's a reason why I got a bunch of dreads in lowsec in order to maybe get in on a fight soon.
so just looking through your CSM application on the E forums, you talked a lot about the stuff that you have done in CSM 19. What are some things that you're hoping to achieve in CSM 20? Is it just like continuation of stuff that you've already been working on, or do you have something new you'd like to pitch towards CTP or the player base in order to get voted?
Like the weapon tier aside is like my big personal project for like a thing that I think that will improve the game, but also I will find fun to do. I'm always working on freelance projects in order to get that system up and going. I think that it has so much room to decide and to expand, and so much design space left to explore. Um, the new player experience in general is like an area I'm heavily focused on, and also because that's a good niche for me. Like I'm always engaging with that. I like make new characters and I join new player corps. I play the game with completely new players in order to see like what are their sticking points in the game. I think that that's how Eve survives as a game in general. Like, no matter what, like, projection could be absolutely perfect. And if new players are not joining the game, eventually everyone in Eve will get married and then we will die out. Like, everyone
Yeah,
will suddenly, like, we need those nerds who play 8 hours a day and want to, like, lead wars and stuff.
for sure.
I just want an infinite amount of people in university failing their degrees in order to play more Eve, to like stir up shit against each other. Like that's my dream for Eve. But it's hard to campaign on. So I need those players to like join Eve and stick with it because the start of the game is fun, and then they get into the deep end and they realize all the things that you can possibly do in this game. I do a lot of stuff with the community. I think that that's a great reason to vote for me. If you have an idea for an improvement, like to the UI, to your favorite playstyle, like is there a bug that has been bugging you for a long time? Like, do you have issues? Um, it could be like any amount of small things, like the fact that if you are inviting people to your fleet, the resign as CEO is on the drop down menu
So,
next to invite to fleet.
so
I'm
bad.
working to get that removed.
Thank God.
But there are lots of small things like that. Mind you, I'm not advocating for getting bridge and jump moved further apart than they already are. I think that accidentally jumping your Titan when you meant to bridge is a great thing for the game. It might lead to cool fights. Let's keep that in. But like we had a lot of small things that were added this year. My personal favorites that I got through was increasing the size of NPC buy orders so you don't have to like split stacks or sell multiple times to get your loot sold, like your blue loot and your red loot. If you double click on a market order that is completed, it brings that order up in the market instead of doing nothing like it did half a year ago. Um, we have like all sorts of small things that people have been advocating for that have gone through. The small icon that shows which faction uses what fuel. One of the things left to do in that regard is splitting the ECM multi-spectrum and the burst jammer that have the same icon currently. Like small things like that. If you have any issue with the game, if you have any improvement you want to suggest, no matter how small, absolutely send it to me. I keep a huge spreadsheet with everything that I've ever been asked to do for CSM and while campaigning, and it has stats for like the most popular requests, like more bookmarks, ACL hangers, stuff like that. I got the chance to share this the spreadsheet with people, and some of the things got taken off the list as well, like the undock bug, where if lots of people would undock at the same time and be in exactly the same position in the game, like some of them would teleport out into space, like many AU from where they undocked. Like that's fixed now, and that this CSM, and I would say me in particular, pressed that issue until they decided to look at it. I know it had been reported many times for a long time before this, but I brought it up until they couldn't be bothered to listen to me anymore, and they fixed it. I think something like that.
Yeah, squeaky wheel gets the grease, right?
Yeah, for sure. Like there's a like CCP are very willing to listen to the CSM. Like CCP Okami is absolutely amazing. He he will interface with the players. He'll ask for all of their feedback on certain issues. He talks to us. He'll do one-on-one meetings with the CSM frequently. We get to just like sit and talk about things in a greater detail. Um, and more like on a philosophical level, I would say. Like my discussions with him have been broadly on like how do we get more new players? How do we retain them? What kind of pitfalls are there in the new player experience now, without like getting into detailed numbers or things like that, because this is a longer term project. Like the things that we do in this CSM term aren't getting in the next patch. They're not getting in the next week, unless they're very small things, in which case they very well might. But the big things that will really improve the game are mostly like at the end of the year or next term or the next time they get around to looking at that area of space again. I know like the wormholers amongst us really want there to be a dedicated wormhole patch, and like I mean it didn't wasn't the first patch or like the first expansion that we got after we got onto the CSM, and like we it might come soon, it might come further down the road. If I know, I can't say, and if I don't know, I probably shouldn't say. So
Yeah, no, that was my next question. What's happening?
yeah,
No, I'm kidding.
yeah, exactly. Like so, like from what I know is coming, cool things are coming. From what I hope is coming, that's where I'm spending some of my effort trying to like get the things that I think are important for the game to be addressed. Like not asking for specific fixes,
Yeah.
like not telling them how to fix it, but like telling them we need to talk more about projection. We need to talk more about Sov. We need to talk more about how there are very few small groups in Sovnull because big groups can decide to squash them whenever they want. And if we have very big groups in nullsec and in lowsec, they also have like a dampening effect around them to some degree. And that might, like, I don't know how to address that necessarily, other than projection. But in addition to projection, I might need other fixes, and we should have those discussions.
Um, Going back to like new player stuff. I a couple 2 weeks ago I did an IRL Eve meetup in Edmonton. And I got to
Yeah.
talk to a guy who just started playing the game 6 months ago, and he just wanted to come hang out with a bunch of guys who've been playing the game for 10, 20 plus years. What have you been hearing from people who are trying out Eve for the first time? What makes them want to stick around and or even just try the game in the first place?
The players that I've spoken to who are new to the game are very motivated by the social aspect. I find that like hanging out and playing the game with people is a big motivator. And I do agree with CCP that like one of the big factors of whether or not people stick with Eve is whether they find friends in a corp quickly when they start playing. One of the things that strikes me every time that I play with new players in different ways is there's a lot of information in the game that I know from years of experience that it's hard to explain to new players from a like teach a man to fish kind of way, where I was explaining to my new Eve playing friend how to navigate the map, and we had the new map by then, not the new flat version of the map, but like the new implementation of the new map. And things like how do you tell if something is low sec? Like how do you find the nearest low sec on the map? That's actually kind of hard to explain to a new player because the map shows incursions, it shows corruption, it shows Sov, it shows faction warfare, but you can't sort by like bands of space, for instance. So there are a lot of things in the game that are maybe hard to find for new players. Like the air opportunities suggest that people go capture a Plex for their daily 500,000 ISK and Evermarks and stuff, but there's no tutorial for how to find a Plex. Like you could perhaps intuit it uh, after a bit of looking around as a new player, but like some of these terms are somewhat badly explained or not explained at all. And I think that would be a good place to start. I would like a glossary in the game that just like you could search up a jargon term and it like tell you what it means. Like, I don't know, suicide ganking or AWOXing or grumping or booshing or like
That's a
any of
new.
these terms that we use a lot that are like ingrained in the lingo of the game that aren't English words at all. So maybe maybe the ability for people to suggest edits to like add stuff to a glossary, I think that would be great. I think that the wiki, this is like not for CCP to do, but for the people of Eve, the players, to go in and just put a lot of effort into the wiki to make it as good and as clear for new players as possible. Like the UniWiki is currently being revitalized. I think I look at some other games that have amazing wikis, and I'm like, I would like RuneScape's wiki. Like, give me that
Oh
free,
yeah,
please.
yeah. whenever I whenever I'm bragging about Eve, like I've streamed on like Twitch front page Eve before, and people are like, what makes Eve good?" And the thing that I always brag about Eve is just it's the best social MMORPG of any of the other MMO or RPGs out there. Like, you, in order for you to be successful in Eve, you need to find friends, and I think one thing that would help out with like Eve being able to stick out as a niche like MMO and get a little bit more people into it is just making it more accessible to make friends in the game. Whether that's making it really easy to join like NPSI fleets, or make it really easy just to join like a faction warfare thing and just know that you're not going to get ganked by people who are supposed to be like green to you or whatever, or blue to you.
Yeah.
I think being able to go and figure out how to find your niche in the game and be able to find a group of people that you meld with is going to keep people around for a really, really long time, because that's definitely what happened with me.
Yeah, I find that the AT has done that for me. Like every time I'm running in a tournament team, and like this year for the first time in the last like 15 tournaments, I'm just taking one tournament break from running it myself, and I'm merking this year. But all of the people that I've ever been on an AT team with, or any tournament team, they immediately go on like the list of people I can ask to come do stuff with me in Eve. I've done all sorts of small fun projects. I had one friend where we got up at downtime and we brought a revelation each, and we stole the mothership from a Russian low-sec incursion group by just like YOLOing our dreads into the site like minutes after downtime and stealing the mom. And like we like him and I, we have nothing in common, like in game, in terms of like diplomatic ties. Like we're not blue to each other, but like I trust him from having done a tournament, or like if I want to go roam or I want to blops, I do a lot of MPSI blops stuff with people that I get in from different areas of space, that I know through that. Like people I do wormhole stuff with, often people I've been in corps with at some point. Like as long as I've PvP'd with somebody at some point, they're always gonna be somebody I might call upon to like fill out a fleet for a fun project down the line.
One question somebody's asking: is there anything about salvaging that might be changed in the future, or is there something about salvaging you might want to see changed?
I have had a small discussion recently about somebody who is a little bit frustrated when there's a big fleet battle, and while you're busy fighting the fleet battle, people will come and steal all the loot and Sunesis, like in the meanwhile. Um, one of the memorable changes to salvaging that I remember was I had an old corp mate who just like he really loved salvaging. He would come on strat ups and like a salvage Tengu and stuff like that. It was absolutely a troll, but he cared a lot about salvaging, and he was the one who got salvage or like wrecks of structures and ships to have hit points appropriate for the size of it, because you used to be able to like one shot a capital wreck with like a rack of regular guns, right? But yeah, I think that there's something to be done with salvaging for sure. Like that's slightly untapped space, but I'm not exactly sure what we would do for like salvaging gameplay. One of the things that I kind of wanted was having like a BRM level system for for salvage or something, because honestly when I have big fleet fights and we have like thousands of ships on grid, after the fleet fight, even if I could make a lot of money doing it, I don't feel like going and salvaging that, especially not like imminently, because the wrecks will disappear. I feel like if a sufficiently large battle happens in the system and all the Rex despawn or most of the Rex despawn, like whether they're looted or not, maybe we can have like a salvage site appear there over the next few days that like condenses some of the salvage from that fight that people can go in and pick up later, just like as a temporary fun thing for people to fight over and work on. Currently, materials for rigs are like severely depressed in price because of the new SOV discoverable sites for hacking. So we need to get that in balance first, regardless. Like, I'm happy that rigs are cheap, but also I feel like people who go around exploring how to make plenty of money. So that needs to be fixed. And then I think salvage is like a fun small side project of like a niche gameplay loop that some people love and should be supported.
Um, is there anything else you'd like to talk about or brag about, or something you'd like people at home to know about you? Why they might want to vote you over top of somebody else?
I think one of the best reasons to vote for me is the fact that I answer 100% of messages I get and I follow through. I get some stupid messages for sure, and I will like discuss it with people a little bit as to like why this is going to be difficult to implement, or like in the terms of, in the case of ACL hangers that we've heard a lot about it and like they know. But in a general sense, I do answer all messages and I will gladly speak to people about their proposals. And I front a lot of proposals. I will let the devs know. I will put it up on the internal wiki so that it's like documented and everyone will have a chance to like get their suggestion. And like there are lots of great suggestions. I've been working with some people to reduce the amount of repetitive strain entry in setting up and maintaining SOB, whether it's like configuring skyhooks remotely. Now we have like SOB hub ACLs need to be individually placed on each SOB hub, and that would be good if we could get done remotely. If you have a suggestion and you want CCP to hear about it, if it's just like improving a small UI element that you love or hate or you want to see, that's a good reason to vote for me because I will bring it forward. I have a lot of time to do so, and I think some of the people on the CSM are better at being around and serving the constituents and like those CSM members deserve more time on the CSM because they're doing great work. I would particularly shout out Young Puke and Draken and Mick Fightmaster as people who spend a lot of time working for their constituents as well. All of us are willing to respond and bring your stuff forward to CCP. If you particularly care about the new player experience or want freelance projects to be good, or you want weapon tier aside like I do, and you care about ship balance. Ship balance is really the key for this. Like I wouldn't I'm framing it as weapon tier aside rather than ship balance because we're going to get ship balance regardless of whether I'm there or not. And somebody will know what to do with the ships. And like that probably will be good. I care about it a lot, but I'm not the only one. But weapon tier aside, like somebody needs to push for that to get better ship balance in the future as well.
Awesome, great. Um, any questions from the viewers? I think there's like one person who did like a troll thing, but that's okay. Cool. Well, thanks for coming on, Dujek.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
This was a lot of fun, and you have my vote. I want weapon
Thank you
tier
very much.
sides, and I want new players to be playing the game more. Yeah, that's my biggest sticking point is just getting more people into the game. Definitely, I
Yeah.
hate looking at my time zone and seeing only 18,000 people playing.
Yeah.
I wanted it to be 30,000, 40,000, 60,000. So, yeah. Um, Anyways, I'll let you go have a wonderful evening, day, wherever it is that you are, and I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, I'll do that. Bye.
Sorry, I didn't know if it was a troll or not. Sorry. Would I don't know what you, would you work with me? I don't know what that means. That was good. Yeah, Dujek is awesome. No, that's awesome. Just like looking through like his forum posts about just like him just like being able to like talk a lot to like CCP and getting stuff pushed forward is really cool. Um, like my biggest thing like with any CSM member, just like how are we gonna get more people to play the game? I would. It depends how many you fucking want there, Ty. Uh, like if a CSM member doesn't have a plan to get new people to like play the game or stick around, that's sort of like a big turn off for me for anybody who's trying to like be a leader for the game. Like we have a lot of people who are just like perpetually playing the game. Um, if we're not able to get an extra 100 200 heartbeats, I think if I was talking to somebody at the Eve meetup I had in Edmonton, and like at most there's like 6,000, like 6,000 heartbeats, like real people playing the game, like at any point. It's just like that's so low. Like we need to get that into like the like 10,000s 20,000s of people who are just like playing the game multi-box and whatever. Like I don't want tie-dye to be everywhere, but it'd be kind of nice just to have a couple like 10 more thousand people playing the game in my time zone, so I have more people to go shoot and hang out with and just do cool stuff with. um yeah, like force projection is a problem, especially for like the big guys going up against the little guys. But I think for me primarily, besides wormhole stuff, like it sounds like we're getting a wormhole update or expansion coming up pretty soon. Like a couple things that he's talking about were like changes to ninja huffing, so go be able to kill gas hoppers a little bit more easily, and then also having like objectives for groups to fight over in J space would be kind of crazy. I could only imagine just the amount of wormhole like hole control that people are gonna have to fucking do in order to be able to hold onto those objectives would be really cool. um I'm excited to see what's coming down the line in that regard, but I think we're going to have to hold on until we see like the Mick Fight Master fight, not fight, chit chat that we're going to have on Thursday, in order to be able to get a little bit more insight on that. Um, but yeah, like Magic 14, absolute fucking dumpster shit fire that is. I could probably look in the game right now to see how long it would take me to train a brand new character to be able to just have like the what's it called? I can't remember the skill. In order to be able to have like max CPU skills. Um, break up the big blocks like Terry Rose. I don't think we need to break up the big blocks. I think we just need to make it so that like they're it should be a little bit harder for them to go up against like little guys, but I don't know how that would work, especially with like null six Sov, for example. Like I don't know how that would work out for those guys. Um, I want the little guys to survive, but I do know that we need the big guys in order to be able to have like the big fights and whatever. But yeah, I don't know. I want to vote for him. I'm gonna vote for Dujek again. If you want to if you want to get my vote, it's basically like I like new players. I'm like, oh baby, do I ever? um, I want every player to have max fitting skills. My dream would be everyone get level 4 skills up to cruisers. Yes. Yeah. No. Yeah. I think. Yeah. I like talking to that new guy who's been playing the game for a few months. Um, like just to get the fitting skills to 5 shouldn't take more than a week, right? In order to be able to have like be able to use like max CPUs, can have like really tight fits. It shouldn't take longer than a week to get that up to level 5. I really like Dujek's idea of having like you go do like mission arcs or whatever, and then that would be like a really easy way of just like hey, you do this mission, well you get the skill points you need in order to be able to go and like have max CPU skills or whatever. Just make it really easy but interactive in order for people to get the skills that they need in order to go and fly the ships to go do the fun stuff. I've only been playing the game for 4.5 years, so I haven't been playing the game for like a crazy long time. Um, hey Jigsaw, how you doing, buddy? Um, like I've been around since I'm basically a baby. I'm a little baby. I've been playing the game since like skill injectors have always been a thing since I've been playing. So I haven't I've definitely used quite a few skill injectors to get to where I am now. Um and so like all my main characters, I think I maxed out Magic 14 because I'm just like I can't fucking be bothered. What changed? Oh, a lot. A lot's changed. 16 years here, that's crazy, Ivan. We vibing. Yeah, we just finished chit chatting with Dujek again. So here is his forum post for anybody who is interested, just to see what he's all about. Again, he's a brave FC AT pilot's leadership position. Um, Obviously he does really good work on the CSM, and really hope that he gets revoted again because again, even though he's a null block person. It sounds like he's just trying to help the game in a very healthy way, and that's not just centralized on just help making the current player base like really happy. Like doing like the freelance stuff, I think it's going to be like a really good change. Because right now it sort of sucks. The example I gave was just like people using like Amazon Prime, for example, putting up like like freelance jobs, but it's like people were taking their orcas through Amazon to go and ice mine one system next to like Amazon from the other side of Jita and getting like free orca kills. What's the daily active player count right this second? It says 17,000, but earlier today it was at 32,000. Yeah. Ba, 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 ba. Two. Taeon. Yeah, yeah. Basically, all I did was just like, hey, who wants to talk to Shad about like doing interview talks? So last year I talked to Ariel Rin. I reached out to Angry Mustache, so he should be reaching out to me soonish. I got Seema to Peenan, and I think Young Puke 2 is also reached out to him as well. Oz is like on the other side of the world for me. Who else? Kashal, I'll be talking to in 40 minutes. So I just got a little bit of time before she logs in, because she'll be waking up at 4 a.m. her time, um, to go like have a chit chat with me about stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Like I've been playing the game for like 4.5, 5 years, and we've been doing pretty. Like I've been having a lot of fun. I've been having a lot of fun. Like outside, like just like even like the streaming thing. Now I've been able to sort of like have a collection of dudes and friends that I get to go and do like really crazy fun things with, and we've had some really fun content. But like for me, it's just like trying to get those other people to stick around is a really big thing. Like making the game a little bit more accessible, getting those dopamine hits in really quick. My buddy, he showed me a couple of his shooters that he keeps on trying to get me to go play, and he's able to go like boom, 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 boom. Have like just just be able to get into games super fast, and that's what gets him to play his shoot hunts down a showdown or something. It was like he has like 1,700 hours in. I'm like, dude, that's crazy. Yeah. So I think while we're waiting for Ishal, we'll go and maybe play a little Eve. We'll do a little bit of faction warfare, or I could go do like the events. Who knows? On the Senate, I joined a bit late. Yeah, I know like Eve isn't like that kind of game. Um, I think like it definitely makes it like the game is very niche in regards to just like the sort of person it attracts. Like the thing that attracts me to Eve was I was going through my Dark Souls era and I really enjoyed like challenge. I still enjoy like challenge and figuring stuff out. Eve is definitely like that puzzle that I sort of needed to solve, and in order, and it was just like I don't know. Dujek said used the word monolith. So for me, like unable to open the file at this time. Oh no, it's this on. It's because I made it so that people can't copy it. 1 second. Let's see. Share. Let's see. Restricted. Anyone with the link should be a viewer. There we go. Okay. That should work now. Copy link. There. That should work. Um yeah, like couple one thing that I think would be really good. Sorry. But yeah, so like the thing that really drove me to Eve, which is like trying to like solve this giant puzzle. It's like for me, like I was doing like day train. I was trying to do day train during COVID, and like I learned they can make a lot of money doing day trading in Eve, and sort of that's sort of what sort of drove me towards Eve in the first place. And then I figured out that there was like all like it was like permadeath, like I don't know, like ship permadeath. There's like the meme where just like escalating just like difficulty, and then just like it was just like a fucking I don't know a cliff like for the learning curve. And like for me, like I want to overcome that challenge, and I feel like we should like there should be some grayness to Eve, and in order to be able to make it so that people do have that opportunity to solve those puzzles and get over those humps and those challenges. But in order to be able to grow, um, did I miss? Yeah, you missed Dujek. I'll post this to YouTube and stuff so that people. He's a really good speaker. Holy smokes. I know I sort of do like the ADHD like hyper talk, but Dujek does a really good job of just being very concise and very precise with the way that he's says things. So he's a like already you can tell that he's a really good fucking FC FMFS, and he talks his face. There we go. Yeah, my permission. Yeah, no, Dujek absolutely top 10. There we go. Yeah. Our in-game names come from the same source. Oh, that's really cool. I did not see you there. Hello. Um, but yeah, so for me again, just like for any sort of anybody who's trying to be sort of like a leader for Eve, you need to be able to retain those new players and bring them into the game. So it's really good to see that we do have